It's the solstice. I love this day. Soul, the sun, holding still. It's a thread to our ancestral wisdom. Our ancestors understood that to be on Earth was to be part of a larger cosmological spiral. And our ancestors, the ones without electricity, they gazed at the stars, the moon, the center of the Milky Way, for clues as to what was taking place on this evolutionary spiral. And I love to do this too. We all love to do this. That's why we're celebrating this day. And this particular solstice, our Earth, our North Pole, is tipped towards the center of the Milky Way. It's tipped towards the central sun, along with Pleiades and other solar systems, Pleiades, Andromeda, Sirius, are all spiraling around the central sun, but we have a particular axis point, an axis mundi. And so I think about this, the axis mundi, what is the significance of the axis mundi? And I think back to mythology. And mythology to me is a way to turn our gaze to how information was encoded. Information, sacred, mysterious, mysteries, mystical information was not always written. Writing is relatively new to humanity. Writing has only been happening for 3,000 years, but we have 500,000 years of humanity contemplating the mysteries of everything. And those stories, that information was encoded into music, art, glyphs, mythology, fairy tales. So in our ancestral lineages, there is a great tree, which is often related to the axis mundi, the great tree. This exists in many traditions with its roots in the underworld, a place, an initiatory underworld, where heroes and heroines would travel down like Ishtar and Inanna and be stripped of everything, the journey down and often killed at the bottom, and then reborn again to come up with embodied radiant knowledge. And then there would be the middle world. This is the world where we live now. And then the upper world, where you could gather, the experiences and knowledge of the gods and goddesses. So when we have an axis mundi tipped towards the center of the galaxies, the contemporary myth that might be forming may have to do with the axis mundi of the multiple worlds. We know we've been in a very dark underworld experience as a collective for the last few years, but this dark world has been existing for millennium, and particularly in the United States, there's been underworld since its inception. But this particularly dark experience for the collective of the last few years, just like during the solstice, it's been so dark that we are very cognizant of when the light is leaving. I bet we all look more times to see what time is the sunset at this time of year than other times of the year. And because we were so conscious of the darkness in the collective, we also were very conscious of looking for the time, the light. We were looking for the light, and many of us spent time in our own axis mundi, in our own meditative practices, the practices of ritual and ceremony to gather our own center, and how we were tipping ourselves towards our own light. But just as many old texts or glyphs or drawings or knowledge that was shared orally as our ancestors did, the way that energy has been shown to us that moves is it moves through a weaving. We've got the Kundalini being directly related to human evolution, human consciousness. We have the Caduceus, two serpents. This is drawn in so many different stones and glyphs and buildings as a relationship of how healing happens. So this is a crossing. There's a crossing of two forces. And the two forces that cross through the spiral of time and through the cosmos are dark and light. This is part of the evolutionary spiral. And since the eclipse, many of us, in just October, November, many of us have been going through some very challenging 3D dense experiences. In contrast to maybe during the time when it was really dark for the collective, we were experiencing a degree of consciousness that was related to sort of fifth dimensional. We could see the world that could unfold. We could see the potential for humanity. It was quite a lift. And yes, of course, it was very dark simultaneously. But now again, there's another window of this crossing of the dark and the light within our own consciousness. And it's been shown to me, of course, and I know many of you too, that why is this so? Once we've had a taste of the luminous world that we all would like to participate in. Well, traveling to the underworld, traveling into our wounds, being activated in the wounded material of the collective, of our own personal lives, of our ancestral bodies, of our Akashic memory. We must be activated with these wounds in order to recognize where we need to heal. These parts of us that can be activated cannot go onto the new earth. They just can't travel there. So we are in one of those crisscrossing times of having some real stuff activated. So when these things come towards you that activate and really knock you off your center, because they will be here if you are traveling into the new earth, settle back into this idea that not many forms of consciousness are sharing this idea that struggle and wound activation is not part of the evolution. This is part of the evolution. Find your axis mundi. Where can you hold your center in the lower, in the middle, and the upper? Lean into this. Tip yourself towards the center. Spiral up. Blessed be. Thank you.